Okay, this is going to cover sections 3.5. So we're going to use all the graphing stuff we've talked about and put it together to do slope-intercept form. Slope, as we talked about in 3.4, is your rise over run, or the steepness of a line. That's often referred to by the letter M. The y-intercept, as we've talked about, is when a graph crosses the y-axis. That point is the y-intercept. We refer to that as B. And the slope-intercept form of a linear equation is y equals mx plus b. So you leave the y and the x. M is your slope, b is your y-intercept. To create slope-intercept form, the first thing we're going to do is find the slope from 2 points. So if I have these 2 points, I'm going to do y minus y, which is 3 minus 5, over 0 minus 1. 3 minus 5 is negative 2. 0 minus 1 is negative 1. And if we reduce that, negative 2 divided by negative 1 is 2. So that's our m. Now our y-intercept is when x equals 0. So this point right here is the x-intercept, the y-intercept, sorry. So to write that, y equals m is the slope, x plus b, which is the y-intercept. So now we have slope-intercept form. If we look at these equations, we can find the slope and the y-intercept right from the equation. The first one, 4 is the slope, negative 3 is your y-intercept. The second one, there's no x. So that's like saying 0x. So our slope is going to be 0, and 12 would be the y-intercept. The third one, this negative sign in front of the x is like saying negative 1. So our slope would be negative 1. And then our y-intercept would be negative 5 over 8. The last one, this is with the x, so our slope is 2/3, and there's no b, so our y-intercept would be 0. That's how you do it from the equation. From a graph, we just find those two things. So here's a point and here's a point. To get our slope, we go up 1 over 2, so our slope is 1/2. And then the y-intercept is right here, which is negative 2. So we'd write y equals 1/2 x minus 2. The next graph, y-intercept is 0. Another point's here, so our slope would be up 3 over 2. So we could write it as y equals 3 over 2x, or we could put the plus 0 if that makes you feel more comfortable. Also works in the other way. We can sketch an equation. It's just like we did in the last section where you're given a point and a slope. This time the point is just the y-intercept. So we'd start at 1. And then we do down 1 over 2. So down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. Down 1, right 2. And we have a line. For the next one, we need to rearrange things so that it says y equals. So if we have 2x plus 3y equals 12, we bring the 2x over. 3y equals 12 minus 2x. Divide everything by 3. And we get y equals 12 divided by 3 is 4. And negative 2 divided by 3 is negative 2/3 x. Fraction's easier with this. So 4 is going to be our y-intercept. So we start at 4. And then negative 2/3 is our slope, because that's with the x. So I go down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3, down 2 over 3, and we have a line. Last one, we're going to do the same thing. First, we need to make it say y equals. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So x minus 4 equals 2y. Divide everything by 2. We get 1/2 x minus 2 equals y. Doesn't matter if the y is on the right or the left. Same process. Our y-intercept is negative 2. Our slope is 1/2. So we go up 1 over 2, up 1 over 2, and there's our line. Now we're going to look at a word problem. Suppose that an international call with cell phones is $5 for the first connection and 50 cents per minute. What is the charge for 23 minutes? Well, we know we pay 50 cents a minute, so we're going to do 23 times 50 cents. And that gives us 23 times 50 cents, $11.50. And then we add the $5 for the call. So it would cost $16.50 for this 23-minute phone call. Putting our equation in slope-intercept form, slope is what happens over and over again. So that's our cost per minute. So y equals 0.50x. And then the initial cost that only happens once is $5. So in blue, we have y equals 0.50x plus 5. Then we can work backwards. How long did they talk if it cost $8.50? So our cost is our money. We'd plug it in for y and then solve for x. So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. Divide by 0.50. And we get 7. So x equals 7 minutes. Word problems, same way. Okay. Parallel lines have the same slope. That just means they're never going to touch because the slope is exactly the same. If we're finding the slope-intercept form of a line, it's y equals mx plus b. Parallel to this line, it's going to have the same slope. So m has to be -2. Passing through the point -2, 3. Sketch. So we have two options. One is to plot that point, -2, 3, and then use our slope, -2 down 2 over 1, to find our y-intercept, which is -1. We can write this. So that's one way with graphing. Use the point and the slope, graph it, find the y-intercept. Another way is to plug that point in for x and y and solve for b. So if our equation is y equals -2x plus b, because we know -2 is the slope, we'll rewrite it, but instead of y, I'm going to put 3. And instead of x, I'm going to put -2. -2 times -2 is 4. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and we get -1 is b, which is the same thing. So you can do that either way. Perpendicular is the same thing, except instead of never touching, they're going to cross at a 90-degree angle. So their slopes are negative reciprocals. So a reciprocal is a flipped fraction, like 4/5 and 5/4. And then a negative reciprocal just means one's negative and one's positive. For 2/3, the negative reciprocal, since 2/3 is positive, the reciprocal is going to be negative, and then we flip it, 3 over 2. -6, to make it a fraction, we put it over 1. It's already negative, so our reciprocal is going to be positive, and we flip it. -1/4, it becomes positive, and we flip it. So it could be 4 over 1, or you can just write it as 4. They're both the same thing. Now, find the slope-intercept form of an equation passing through the line, so slope-intercept form, passing through the origin, which is 0, 0, so we know our y-intercept is 0, and perpendicular to the line. So we have to find the slope, we have to find the reciprocal, and then we can write the equation. The first one, this slope is 3, so the new slope is going to flip that and become negative. And we know our y-intercept is 0, so it would just be -1/3 x. Same thing here. We're going to find the new slope. So we flip this, make it positive. And our y-intercept is 0, so it would just be 5 over 2x. For this last one, we need to make it say y equals to find our slope. So 4y equals 24 plus 3x. Divide everything by 4. Y equals 6 plus 3/4 x. So this slope is 3/4. So our reciprocal is going to be -4/3. And our y-intercept is 0. So we have y equals -4/3 x. That's how we use it. Parallel would be the same. Perpendicular, we do the reciprocal. Now let's do it when it's not the origin. So we have the same two options we had before. We can plot the point, -1, 1. oops, negative 1, 1. The slope of this line is negative 1/2. So when we flip that and make it positive, we get positive 2 over 1. So I'd go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, and our y-intercept is 3. So we would get y equals 2x plus 3. That's how we do it graphically. Or we do the same thing with the slope and find our reciprocal. Then we plug these in for x and y. So 1 equals negative 1/2 times negative 1 plus b. 1/2 of 1 is a half, and a negative times a negative is a positive. That's not working because that should be 2. I forgot to flip it. 2. I use the original slope, not the perpendicular. So 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2. Add 2 to both sides, and I get 3. So right there, I knew it didn't match the equation that I just did, so I could look back and check and find my error. You have all of these options, so you can check your own work. That is the end of chapter 3. Let me know if you have any questions.